welcome back to the channel, and welcome to very stunningly beautiful and peaceful Druridge Bay. It's Tuesday evening. I've just flown straight up the A1 after work. Got away from my desk a bit earlier than normal for about 5, straight up the A1. Of course, as soon as I got out of the office, started walking up to the car, the heavens opened, it started chucking it down. I just thought, you know what, I just cannot catch a break this year in terms of hitting just one of those nice summer's evenings where it's just really calm and you don't get any hassle. However, I've come up the road and there's a tiny little bit of easterly, but it's actually, for once, it's quite warm, it's not cold. The rain stopped, it seems to be concentrated further south. So I'm on the beach, I'm about an hour into high water. I thought, right, I've had a couple of sessions on the kelpies recently, you might have seen them. I thought, you know what, I fancy something different. I fancy just raiding the fridge. And all I could find was some black lug, frozen blacks. They've been in the freezer for ages. They're perfectly fine. So what we're going to do is, we're just going to have a little bit of a scratching session tonight. I've knocked up a couple of my favourite rigs for this type of fishing, which are very simple. 2 hook, 2 up, i.e. 2 hooks above the lead. Clip rigs. I'm not going to be casting for tonight. They don't need to be clipped. I just like to know that everything's hitting the water and coming off the clip straight without being tangled. So what I've got is, I've got probably, the rig body itself is probably 5.5 foot of 60-pound ASO Classic. And I've got a variation of leads. That happens to be a 3-ounce breakaway, or is it a Gemini? I can't remember. I've got a lead out there at the minute, which is like a little, it's kind of a variation on a watch lead, and all I'm doing, I'm casting out just to see where the pull's going, so I know where to cast. But if need be, that's a 3-ounce gripper, or I can even move up to a 4. I'll not be going any heavier than a 4 because I've only got my 11-foot flatty Fanatic with us. So what I like to do is, that's the rig body, and on that, it's just a very simple crimp and bead arrangement in terms of where my snoods are held. They're held on with very small beads and a snood swivel, which has got a bit of a subtlety because it's got a round eye where it meets the rig body, and then a pointed diamond eye where it meets the snood. Snoods themselves are 40-pound Amnesia. There's a little bit of discoloration in that. Hopefully it doesn't weaken the line. Hooks are a combination of Mustard Aberdeens, long shank 1/0, and then the Pennell, which is a very small, again, very fine wire Aberdeen, size 4, and I've just bent that slightly at the top, which is a little tip I got from, I mean, I've seen it, it's been around for years, I'm just too lazy to do it, but when I saw it in the flesh when Martin had done it last week, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna do that, because it should kink the line less. And how it works is, just above the top crimp and bead, very old school. The older viewers might remember seeing these sorts of things in sea angler. It's just a little bit of PVC tubing, and it's just a little bit of wire. It comes with a hook already in place. You just push that through, get your pliers, bend it, and what it means is, if I can just undo that, so you get everything clipped up, same on the bottom end, and you cast, and because that rig body will stretch, once it hits the deck, that just pops straight off, and it just means you can just push that down. There's not much tension, just enough to keep it clipped up. Push that down, recast, and the beauty is, if I do get a small flatty or whatever tonight, and I need to just leave the hook in it to prevent more damage, I can cut that, tie another hook straight on. And the beauty of this system is I can just push that further up and keep on fishing, and it's just 1 knot is all I need to continue. So it keeps you fishing, and it's quite easy. Same arrangement on the bottom, exactly the same principle, and I just really like it. I like to know that everything's going to arrive on the bottom as best, it's presented as best it can be, and everything will fall off rather than stuff being twisted. The other beauty about this system is if you get down to the beach and you think, oh, there's a bit more surf than what I thought. And I mean, these are probably fairly long hook lengths. I mean, they're what, 2.5 foot-ish. Straight away you can just say, right, one little cut, and you can just take 10, 12 inches off that, get your snoods nice and short, tight at the bottom, and they're not spinning around. So it's I think it's a very versatile rig. And the other thing, with both hooks being above the lead, if you get a bite, that pull is straight onto your leader and then onto the tip of your rod, especially if you're using braid. So that's my sort of theory around it. As I say, selection of leads. I'm going to start with plain leads. This one that I've put out first hasn't really moved at all, so I'm just going to whack the grippers back in the box. Bait, as I say, is pretty kind of, oh, here comes the rain, I knew it. Fairly standard scratching bait. We've got some frozen blacks, bit of mackerel, and I'm just going to cut some little fillets off. And I think what I'm going to do on this one, I'm going to have one hook just lugworm, one hook just mackerel, and then I'm hoping if there are any bass or turbot or whatever around, I can kind of attract maybe a turbot with some mackerel or bass with some lugs. So we'll get this one baited up, get it fired out there, and we'll see if there's anything hanging about. So what I'm going to do on my top hook, which is probably going to have a bit more movement on it, I'm just going to put whole black lug on, thread that up. I'm going to put the tail on as well, even though it's probably mainly full of sand, but never mind. Get that on. Oh, don't start raining. I can see it's a little bit of a black cloud. It's quite confusing this, because the air feels like it's coming east off the sea, but yet the weather seems to be moving from the west to the east, but we'll just have to bear with it. Just to chew off. 1, 2, 3. Pierce that through there. It's just quite simply one hook. Bait, as I say, I'm just using little bits of mackerel in the hope that there's a turbot out there. If there's a flounder or a dab, that would be quite canny. But yeah, just bind that on. I'm not going crazy on the elastic. These baits are only going to be out 20 minutes or so at the most. Where I'm fishing tonight, because I've not fished this beach. Well, I've never actually fished this particular part of the beach. So I just made the effort, because I'm just after low water, I made the effort to just walk up onto one of the highest dunes and just stand for a couple of minutes and just really have a look at the water and see what was what. And I've chosen this spot because I'll show you in a minute. I've got waves breaking on one side and then just calmer area, and then waves breaking on the other side, which typically indicates that there's a bit of a hole. So I'm thinking, depending on how far out the tide's gone, either there might already be fish in there, or if there are any fish that come kind of following the tide in, those deeper holes where there's a bit more water should theoretically hopefully be some of the first places they'll look for food. So I'm just going to fish into this hole, and then there are a couple of channels around us. As the tide pushes, I'll just move back and just keep having a bit of a cast around. I'm only going to have quite a short session. It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'll probably fish till 10. So we'll get this one clipped up on the stand and just see if this little bit of surf throws something out. So as I was saying, hopefully you can pick that up on the camera. We've got a nice big sort of calmer bowl in front of us here that I'm casting into. There's actually some turns diving just where the waves are breaking. There's some water breaking there, and I can pretty much see the sandbar underneath because the water is quite clear. And then I've got some more waves over this side as well. So just hoping as this tide pushes and as it gets a little bit darker, I might just be able to pull something out. And I can't actually see. It's almost like a bit of deflection off the water where the waves are coming in. There's a bit of tide moving with maybe a little bit of undertow from depth. So figuring that hopefully if there is any food lying around in any of these bays, this might just be one of them, but we'll find out. pretty happy tonight because I finally, after 7 months, been reunited with my aerotechnium, which is the XSC. I basically pushed my limits with it for too long, too hard for too long. I was using it off the rocks during the winter in the kelp, and it pretty much just gave up the ghost. Anybody that's a regular or long-term aerotechnium user, that'll not be news to you, but if you are thinking about buying one of those reels, do not spend a lot of money on a reel that frankly isn't up to the job when it comes to rough ground fishing. That's why I've bought a much heavier duty Saragossa. I've never used a power aero. I dare say they're probably fine as well, and they'll definitely cast better than a Saragossa. But so from now on, this and the other one is going to be used strictly on clean ground for hounds and scratching and stuff like this. I've got to say, even though I've got the XSD, which is the most recent one, I personally prefer this XSC. It's a little bit shorter in the body. The spool is a little bit shorter, which according to Shimano, you know, it'll maybe not cost quite as far as the XSD, but then again, they're obviously going to say that, aren't they? But for me, it's just a bit more of a compact reel, and yeah, I think had I thought about it when I bought a second one, I probably just would have got one of these as a pair. So that's just my opinion. Anyway, this one's been in 15 minutes or so. We haven't had a touch. I think I'm going to give it another 5, and then what I'm going to do, because we're still at pretty much the early stages of the flood, I'm just going to hit it a little bit harder and just try and get it out kind of at or just beyond those breakers. Just had the first little rattle of the night there. Didn't look too aggressive, but it was definitely a little bite. This tide's only just starting to push. It's the smallest, well, one of the smallest tides of the cycle. It's only a 1.9 ebb, and that was at 6 o'clock. It's now 7:45 and it's barely moved, so there's not a lot of push out there, but hopefully this bay is, something having a little look there. So this one's been in quite a while, so a little bit of weed in that water, but it's not causing too much of a problem. Nah, I think we've missed that. Well, I'm wondering whether or not to go a little bit further along where the next hole is. Just can't seem to connect with anything. I'm going to give it one more cast here and then move, I think. Right, on this rig, I'm just going straight mackerel, because I'm just going to save what worm I have got for when it's slightly duskier, just in case Silver Bar decides to run along. But I've got to admit, I'm not holding out much hope of that, but you never know. You've got to be out here standing fishing to even have a chance, haven't you? So let's get this one fired out. It does look nice, that hole, but I just wonder if there's an out in it. Right, try and wade in a little bit, a tiny bit of distance, tiny bit more distance. Water's lovely and gin clear. Mind, even though it's a small tide, can't feel there's a lot of pull around my feet here. So let's get this one fired out behind those waves. It's a little bit better, to be honest. The line I've got on this reel is, I think it's £35. It's more for when I kind of go hound fishing, but really should be down to about 20. It will be restricting my distance slightly. What I do is just keep that rod tip nice and high, and try and get it out of the water as much as possible to prevent that weed latching onto my line. Don't know what it was tonight. I just had to get out and come fishing. It was like being at work, just relentless stuff to do and just no let up. It's like I need to just get up into the countryside and onto the coast, out the way of everything, and just like properly unwind. I think fishing sometimes for me is like, it's just kind of part of maintaining me sanity and probably part of my mental health, to be honest. Just need that kind of like open space and relaxation and calm, especially during the week. It's nice to just get away from it and kind of like have a bit of a mini reset. Well, it's about 8:30 now. The tide finally started moving, but unfortunately the fish haven't, so I've moved probably 100 yards down the beach. There's nothing in that hole, so I've decided to just come down a little bit further. It's starting to get a bit dusky, so I'm gonna, next rig, I've just been persevering with straight mackerel, just waiting for the light to drop, so I'm gonna put some lug on next in the hope that we can entice something out, but so far it is not looking good. What I would say about this rig as well, if you're looking for out and out distance, it's not the rig to use. I would go for a loop rig or something of that nature. This is definitely more of a kind of short to medium range rig, I would say. So if you're having like a bit of bait halfway up the rig, especially if you choose to use a longer rig body like I do, and that's mainly just to cover a little bit more ground, to be honest. But because you do have that bait halfway up the rig, it does give you, well, it reduces the aerodynamics of the rig basically. But if you do use it, I would suggest your top hook, use your smaller, more streamlined baits like worm, and then have your crab or mackerel on the bottom. Anyway, talk as much theory as you want, but when there's an out there, there's an out there. I've just been standing in the surf there, pretty much daydreaming. I have had a couple of little rattles, definitely just flounder rattles, but we'll wind it in, see if there's anything there. So far, got to admit, not feeling confident at all. We've got some weight on. Yep, definitely a bit of weight on here. Oh, do we have life? I think we might. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Putting up a little scrap, to be fair, on that surf. That's not a bad flounder. Well, that has certainly made me day, because I'm standing here thinking there is no way I'm gonna catch anything, but what do you know? So there we go, a humble flounder saves the day. Nice chunky summer fish. Hopefully you can see that. Sadly, he's taken both of those hooks deep down, but I'm just going to cut the hooks, get another one on, let him go, and hopefully he's all right. But yeah, pretty pleased with that. That's what we came for, just something to have a bit of fun with. So we'll get this next rig out. You never know, a little bit of tide and dusk might just be doing the job. Well, waves just come over him straight away. He's just naturally buried himself. You can see how camouflaged they are, predators and stuff, but we'll get him back. Oh, he's alright. He's not breeding, so Well, the rain has started again. It's not too heavy, but it's making things a little bit uncomfortable. Luckily there's no wind, so other than a little bit of rain, it is quite a nice evening. Be nicer if we could get to the fish, but I'm certainly not complaining with that little flounder there. Well people, I think I'm done. Pretty tired, but I enjoyed just getting out for a couple hours and unwinding. It's all I really wanted to do. Obviously catch something, which I've managed to do. I didn't think I was going to, because it's been pretty bloody slow, but it's been a canny enough evening. It's been spitting on with rain, but at least the wind hasn't picked up. So I'm going to get my gear sorted out, jump in the car and go home. So as ever, thanks very much for watching. Hasn't exactly been manic with fish, but hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Tight lines, keep fishing. We'll see you on the next one.